Well, while Americans become more dissatisfied with President Biden, his Secretary of State is now getting ready to testify before Congress about the botched Afghanistan exit and the Americans who are still left behind, stranded. They don't like to use that word, but we know it's true. This after the president defended the withdrawal at a 9/11 memorial that critics are calling insensitive and insulting. Here are some of those comments.
Can Al-Qaeda come back? Yeah, but guess what? It's already back other places. What's the strategy? Every place where Al-Qaeda is, we're going to invade and have troops stay there? Come on.
I felt like he was whispering again. Maybe it was the mask. While Americans are still stranded in Afghanistan, I'll say it again, the president was out golfing, leading critics to go after him for all of that.
We still have NATO allies with people left behind. The promise was, at the very beginning of this, no Americans left behind. It was a blatant lie.
Lawrence Jones.
Well, the Biden administration is the crisis administration. Let's be clear. It is the border. It is crime. It is inflation. Afghanistan was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And quite frankly, it was the first time that the press decided to ask legitimate questions of the commander-in-chief. But let's be clear how we got here. This could have been diverted during the political process on the presidential race, during the presidential campaign. They decided not to ask questions, and the president is just doing simply what he promised to do. Now, we're in crisis because of they didn't ask those questions, but the American people are letting their voices be heard. Now, look, I don't support cursing at the president. I respect the office. But you can't get the commander-in-chief to answer any type of questions. He's not doing town halls. He's not going across the country talking with actual people being impacted by his policies. So what are they supposed to do? Just sit there and take it?
Miranda.
Well, you're right. And obviously people are not sitting there and taking it. They're expressing their displeasure. And although I'm sure all of us here do not condone crude language, it has become a chant that has ripped across the country, first at college games, then you saw at the Yankees-Mets game on September 11. And Joe Biden is heckled wherever he goes. And obviously it has gotten under his skin. That was where he was in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, trying to, in a very inappropriate place, in a very inappropriate day, to justify yet again his botched Afghanistan withdrawal. He's still playing this straw man as if, you know, most people in America wanted to get out of Afghanistan. They just didn't want to do it this way, leaving all our weapons, leaving Americans behind. So he should know that. I think the dawning realization that is so horrifying for a lot of people is that Joe Biden is actually in control of the White House. People are obeying his orders, even though he has a history of terrible judgment, and you know, his cognitive abilities are certainly not what they were, not that they were ever very good anyway. So there are no grown-ups in the administration. It's just we are all in a runaway train, and there's one guy at the wheel, and that is Joe Biden. It's pretty scary.
Well, I know that comments will be made about that. So, Miranda, you and I have both said it on the air before. We're not doctors on that cognitive point, but what you're talking about is the gaffes and everything else, and the world can see that for themselves and make their own judgment. You know, Kaylee, I thought that this was where the president wanted to toggle to the vaccines. We didn't know what he was going to say. We got some embargoed comments like we always do, but we didn't have specificity that sometimes, like, former presidents have given us. Yeah. So when he made his announcement about a vaccine mandate, it was not the kind of toggle, nimble nature, get to this next topic away from Afghanistan that they may have hoped for in the White House press comms office.
Yeah, that's right. Nimble and Joe Biden probably never belong in the same sentence together because he just simply is not that. You're exactly right, though. An adept press shop would say, let's move on to this issue. Let's change the talking points. Let's not pull us back by making those really wrong-headed comments, you know, at Shanksville as President Biden did. This has just been so wrong. Miranda talked about, you know, the history of bad decision making on Biden. We've seen this. You know, he sold us on a bill of goods of, you know, I've been here for 47 years. I know how it's done. Well, in reality, we have a group of naive neophytes running the country. That's at least what it feels like. Yes, they've been in government for decades, but their decision making just confounds you. When you have, look at just the example of of the Bergdahl deal, for instance, 2014, 2015. Psaki praised that deal. Blinken, the Secretary of State, said we've mitigated the threat from these terrorists that we're handing overseas.
I'm going to need some evidence now.
Right, we haven't mitigated it. They're running the country of Afghanistan now. Leading, just one last point, the former CIA director for Obama to say, you have inspired jihadists around the world. This is Obama's CIA director who's saying this on the Sunday show.
Well, specifically Al-Qaeda.
Yes,
that's what he said.
Specifically Al-Qaeda.
Specifically the possibility that we might be visited again on this soil by that hate.
Exactly.
You know, Emily, what I do find interesting now, though, is the president tries to go forward. He's so mired down by everything that Lawrence was talking about with the crises here and the crisis there and the crises, plural. I don't see a vice president that he's leaning on. Like, where is she, Kamala Harris?
Such a great point. We know that she's missing in action, absolutely, and we know that between the both of them, every time they open their mouth, they make the situation worse. We also know that when they decide to act, they make the situation worse. And yeah, we see him trying to pivot, trying to divert, holding press conferences on COVID when all America is talking about, all we want to know about is the stranded Americans left behind in Afghanistan and the accountability for the 13 service members who died. For someone who campaigned on being ordinary Joe, who identified himself for the last 47 years as being the guy that you can bring home to your parents to talk about what kitchen table matters, how they impact your family. I've never seen someone more detached. For someone who said he was going to be the uniter in chief, I've never felt more divided. I've never felt more attacked, that my fellow Americans are attacked. I spent all weekend with veterans of the 20-year war, and I would never dare to speak for them. But it was incredibly disheartening to hear the levels of sentiment and how people feel, how my fellow Americans feel about how this president left them behind, left Americans behind, allies behind, and sullied the honor that America had for so long. And a quick point about the nimbleness. Have you guys ever seen Death Becomes Her? Remember that movie where they like come back from the dead?
Meryl Streep.
Yes, literally. I picture him verbally is like when they fall down the stairs and their limbs are falling off and everything is so jerky. Like that's him on a daily basis. Is it so hard to find someone that actually acts like a leader?
Well, you know, Lawrence, I could kind of hear you in the background there. One of the things I was thinking about before we got to the images of Death Becomes Her was, you know, this fact that the president and his administration seem to think that we can't multitask. We are the kings and queens. In fact, let me adjust our crowns. Come on, everybody. We have multitasked for the last 19 months. We're in a pandemic. Yeah. Like, did you hear the business owner who owns 36 great clips and is down 70 employees before the vaccine mandate? Yeah. Like, keeping his people safe up until this point, trying to figure out how to make everything work. We are the royalty of multitasking. Well, we the citizens, we the people.
Well, President Empathy is not out there talking with the people. He's not talking with the people that are being impacted by his decisions. This White House has tried very hard to isolate the president. They did it in the middle of the campaign trail where he stayed in the basement for months after months and not asking questions. They're doing it right now. And it is as if you just ignore everything that's happening in the world and everything is going to go away. Well, it's not going to go away. And I blame part of this on the media, as I alluded to earlier. You have to ask the tough questions. The American people were robbed of a true choice.
But they also have to answer them. Well, like when you have Jen Psaki at the White House and you ask, well, who's going to pay for the mandates and you know, checking cards at the door and all that? She had to think about, well, I don't know, I guess the businesses.
Or what about or what about him saying from the very beginning that there weren't going to be mandates? I mean, that's a lie now. Right. That's a lie now. No one's calling him on that.
Well, and Miranda, we weren't going to leave anybody behind. Again, we can multitask. We can talk about all these topics, as Emily was pointing out. You know, we can stay on message better than he can.
Yes, but he doesn't want us to multitask. He wants us just to concentrate on what the White House has decided is the point of the moment. And so he doesn't want us thinking about Afghanistan because it was a disaster. He doesn't want us focusing on the border. He just wants us on, you know, the latest COVID fear campaign.